These male wasps are known as the bold-faced hornets for their striking white facial patterns and mostly black bodies. On a chilly October evening, they came to rest on the flower of a fall raspberry. As the night draws near and the air cools, they clutch firmly to the petals of their beloved blossom, not knowing if this nap time will be their last.
What will happen to us, old brother Ash? Hey, I got no freaking idea, brother Shu. How you doing? Your voice ain't sounding right.
Oh, sorry, I just got too nervous, I guess. I have so many questions flying around my head. Ever since we left the hive this morning, I found myself thinking more. I now have thoughts that would be called dangerous back home, coming to me, begging to be explored. Oh, my brother, how scary but exciting our new life has become.
Yeah, I ain't scared of nothing but your foot on my face right about now.
Maybe this flower is a bit small, but I'd rather we sleep close by tonight because it's getting cold. Plus, I got to tell you about my crazy day. This morning, I sat on a sunny ledge to warm up a bit. Another wasp, different from us, sat there as well. She said her name was Betsy, a very gentle northern paper wasp, and that this was her second year of life. In that great amount of time, she learned things that she thought I should hear. So you know me, we spent half a day together. It turns out she was a queen of a small family hive organized much like our own. But I found out this was not the way the vast majority of wasps and bees live. She took me to see the nests of mason bees, who much like mud-dauber wasps build very ingenious cell structures within available wood cavities. I asked if they were also queens, but such distinction means nothing to them because every female has her own mate, builds her own nest, and lays her own baby eggs. So they all could do what only our queen does. At first, I didn't think such a different way of life was possible. But then, Betsy introduced me to a butterfly friend of hers who told us she's getting ready to fly south for the whole winter. Can you imagine? Our own queen can't even do that.
Hey, look at you now. You also think you're some kind of social butterfly or something, brother Shu?
Hey, I might be friendly, but I'm also very independent when it comes to my personal thoughts and ideas. So at this point, to my surprise, I realized how narrow my ideas of what's possible were and how liberating it felt to see them instantly shattered. It was a familiar feeling, like that of freedom. Something about it felt so natural that I could almost sense it stir deep within the most ancient fibers of my being. I started to wonder, why do most females in our hive work so hard, not having mates or their own children? They worry day and night only about the queen's babies. And what life does the queen really have? She just lays eggs non-stop, for heaven's sake. I never saw how wrong this is until Betsy showed it to me, being totally different for others. Our sisters were all told from birth that serving the hive is their greatest honor, and in return, the hive will serve them. They took those words to heart and accepted being part of the working class. They gave the whole life to our hive. And what exactly did it give them that they couldn't get for themselves?
Sure, my buddy, not for nothing, but you do realize we owe our lives to these worker wasps. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, Ash, but at what price to them? That price is not fair in my opinion.
So Shu, tell me this. Who's the boss around here? Who's saying it's gotta be like that?
I used to think it was the queen, but it wasn't. And it isn't just our hive that operates this way. It's all hives all around the world.
Hey, maybe they just do what they gotta do. Leave them, don't worry about it. You think they were born yesterday? Who knows how long this is going on?
Oh, it began far in our distant past. Betsy told me all about it. But first she explained that she learned everything last winter, which she spent inside a human home. You would not believe what she has seen. It was a very big house where many people gathered at times, but those gatherings were very mundane, where the minds of people stayed either blank or very repetitive. On the other hand, When the groups were smaller, she saw many different thoughts flashing between them constantly. It was captivating her to no end. She sat perched over the heads, inside a small bouquet of dry red roses, hung from an oak beam above a large round table at which people talked quietly for hours. In over 6 months, she was able to piece together a fascinating history of human species. This story is very important to social wasps because of the stark similarities you will soon notice in our past, present, and likely future. In the very beginning, long, long ago, original humans were much more complete. Each had developed a rich, multifaceted intelligence to comfortably handle the entire business of life all on their own. Sure, every person might have also favorited one activity over another, but they would never relinquish all the other skills necessary to maintain a gratifying existence. What they had was real knowledge, obtained through the direct experience and exploration. Imagine intimately knowing every plant and its uses in food and healing. They appreciated every animal around them like each other because they lived together, and it mattered to understand it all for the health and wealth on a daily basis. They had skills to build shelter and make all the needed tools. They even created their own clothing. They also figured out the weather, stars, and Earth well enough to help them thrive through much greater disasters than we've ever witnessed. Each person was a walking encyclopedia. I'm talking about people that existed thousands of years before the European Renaissance. And those Renaissance men were like breadcrumbs compared to original man's whole enchilada. They realized that constantly broadening and improving their ingenuity was in tune with the ever-changing and growing natural surroundings. Truth was their everything. They had no need and no time for lies because only true information had value. Even in those early days, their personal relationships were essential to them. They enjoyed the interactions and mutual support offered by the other humans. They kept their social structures small, so reputations and respect were carefully maintained. Being familiar and friendly to each other, their reciprocity came from their hearts and not from obligation. People got along because they actually liked each other, not because they were obligated to get along. The very first social unit was one's family. Its strength was integral to maximum success in raising one's young and caring for one's elders. Good relationships were also established with other families, but these connections did not diminish individual capabilities. Instead, they complemented them. For example, the overabundance of harvest from one family was traded for different products of another. They also learned from each other and exchanged physical help to complete hard or tiresome work. Maintaining self-sustenance while enjoying extra perks of extended family was a fantastic arrangement for all. Then, something unusual and unnecessary happened. Some humans, instead of leading an all-encompassing life like nature intended, became lazy and chose to specialize in performing just one single function. At first, it was to steal physical possessions from others. It came at a significant risk, however, of bodily harm and pain if done unsuccessfully. So some realized that a more valuable and assured theft target could be information. It had to be something very few already knew, which in those days was not easy. So they began by playing the first game in mind control, making others believe that they alone had certain knowledge and power, a secret ability to protect people from aforementioned crime, and special benefits for a given society with patronage and predictions from a metaphysical world. Or a lot of mumbo-jumbo. All this was offered in exchange for a small extortion of goods and services at first. Then they traveled to other rural communities to convince a larger number of people that their supernatural support was valuable and necessary, and their reach broadened. Their donations and social status grew exponentially. If in their travels they found some actual discovery, still unknown to most, they made sure to quickly monopolize it by extinguishing its source. As their bag of magic tricks swelled, they created elaborate rituals, initiations, and a hierarchy around the self-styled secret science. To maintain legitimacy, they bolstered their fear-mongering and self-glorification. Soon, they proclaimed to have the influence and wisdom of of God and told everyone to worship their majesty. In reality, they didn't care about spiritual or even mental upliftment. The actual goal was material enrichment and the consolidation of power within the physical world. Such was the birth of specialization and the first social class. The wizards of deception quickly realized that they themselves now depended on the rest of the population. To turn the tables and make everyone else dependent, they needed to have everybody specialize as well, pulling them away from a self-reliant lifestyle. Only then people would willingly and continuously participate in the master plan. The first step to accomplish this was to concentrate large numbers of people into an area too small to support their food requirements, so that food would be grown and delivered by others. For this reason, large construction projects were designed in isolated locations. This required for the workers to leave their homes and settle very close to the work site. It was hard physical labor, with no time or means to do much else. The builders required full-time cooks, tailors, tool makers, doctors, you name it. And it didn't matter what the actual construction project was. A huge statue, a temple, road, bridge, wall, observatory. Their true purpose was always the same: to fracture the previously strong people and destroy their independence. This meant that the bigger and more lengthy the project became, the more permanently societies would change. Soon, word would spread about these large settlements, and trading routes to them were established. New ships and ports were built, and further stratification of trades and regional authority was put in place. The second layer of control was less obvious, as centers of trade, worship, and manufacturing continued to draw in more people, tightly packed, side by side and top to bottom like sardines. There was a psychological change taking place in those early citizens. People began to feel insecure without their own sense of separateness and privacy. This in turn made them more inclined to control others, to compensate for the personal surrender. This translated to every metropolis becoming the birthplace of overbearing governance. Today, by the way, the notion of overpopulation and the world getting smaller are purposely ingrained to make people feel confined on a global scale. Such mentality will support and justify ushering in a very domineering, suffocating one-world order. In addition, those who came looking for a job, enticed by a promise of an easier life with less responsibility, didn't comprehend that they would also lose that which they no longer used. Use it or lose it. We are talking here not just about the ability to do basic self-sustaining tasks, but also about the loss of the decision-making ability, one's reason, perception, and intuition in different unpredictable situations. Once these mental talents are sufficiently dulled, people become doubtful of their own common sense and devolve into consenting captives of those in charge. It's almost as if the ruling class has repossessed the brains of everyone else. Now people are under the illusion that whatever they are doing must be correct if others told them to do it. Why? Because to simply be able to put food in their mouths, they now must first obey a command from somebody else. This brings us to the third layer of control: the exchange of centrally administered money for one's goods and services. By working for something that was controlled by the powerful few, there now was a risk of fluctuating money supply, depleting its own value. The more money was being issued and the more uneven its distribution, prices went up, but the wages often did not. So people worked harder while their money got weaker. Economic enslavement advanced further when a fourth layer of perpetual debt was normalized. Proliferation of loans actually helped inflate the cost of housing so high that people must now work most of their lives to call a home their own. The fifth layer of still deeper dependence was instilled in the young to follow a path of servitude instead of equipping children with skills to flourish under their own capacity, to master themselves. They're treated as programmable products, packaged and pushed to the nearest meaningless crank-turning, button-pressing and lie-serving positions. And finally, to harden the grip of control forever, the sixth layer will be a token of hush money stolen from the right pocket and stuffed into the left pocket of everyone's pants. they will never unplug from a system that pretends to fund the survival. At this stage, even the idea of tasting real freedom will be frightening to them. There have been many other layers and sub-layers added over time, and many still awaiting application. They all have one common goal: to reduce humanity from a miraculous wonder of infinite inspiration to the most vile automatons of soulless resignation. Think about that. Remember the middle class. They're so defeatist, they say. It's exactly what they think of you. As you can now plainly see, this business of enslavement is very old. Its goals haven't changed, but some top players and tactics have been continuously refined. The stakes are high. They are now playing for keeps.
Man, that's just real messed up evil right there. I sure hope for their sake people don't just fade away like that, Brother Shu.
I hear you, Brother Ash. Maybe they can foresee their imminent downfall before their strength of spirit leaves them. Currently, most of them are kept too distracted and confused to notice they're on a path of no return. Once all examples of a truly free life are forgotten, people will falsely believe and protect their oppressors by pretending to give all their power away to others, be it politicians, physicians, priests, or police. They will have lost themselves. It is still all a big lie, however, because their unalienable power can never be really transferred. It is still there, just unrecognized and uncultivated. Most accept the current scheme of life, even with all the rules stacked heavily against them. Some see their losing hand, but don't see an option to walk away. And then there are the very few who know and trust in something else so much more that they stand up, shed all the fear and lies, relearn how to dream, refocus their goals, and finally begin the practice towards achieving their true life purpose. Of course, that is easier said than done. And there is a reason why this is so. It's because the architects of current human civilization made the formula for enslavement the central, fundamental basis of their design. Anyone who cannot take care of themselves must become a victim and a slave of a system that strips them of their dignity, will, and freedom. A social structure which deprives those within it of everything that's good is nothing more than a cult of human sacrifice. The double-team tactics of right-wing militarization and left-wing socialization are forcing the whole world ever more closer to a totalitarian order of control and dependence. It is no accident that just about every new law, and look it up, yeah, I dare you, look up any new law, policy, or program sold to the public these days, takes away their personal freedom. If this continues, people will lose their self-ownership and all the possible means by which to reclaim it. Can you believe that? So in a nutshell, let me summarize it for you. From birth, everyone is put into a highly structured, sterile, and stifling environment, and they love it, with only the same round-the-clock, repetitive, soul-stealing sensory stagnation. This prepares people perfectly to enter, as adults, a tedious, tiring, and taxing treadmill of trades that trivialize their treasured time. They transact it timidly away, as if their living soul had only the temporary utility of a toilet tissue, and they love it. I know that's harsh.
Shoo, my brother, sounds downright sad, but there's nothing to it. They can stop this single-skill slavery and the socialist superstate by broadening out the skill set a little. Before they know it, doing the thing on the side, they become self-employed captains of their own fate. You know what I mean?
I agree with you, Ash. Instead of wasting one's life on something superficial and unnecessary to the well-being, they could be directly making their own life better. Their current job isolates them away from everything that has value and means something real, like their family life, home, or nature. On the other hand, the pursuit of worthwhile personal endeavors that they truly love could also provide the income they really want. In one's own home, in a studio, office, or workshop, new dreams, ideas, or inventions could finally begin. There would be no limitations. If both one's time and one's goals are now one's own and pursued with unwavering passion, when that long-forgotten wish or ambition is once again present, it's important to invest in learning all there is to know about it. This may uncover an opportunity that, if tried much more more seriously than one's prior job could grow into an increasingly enriching position of inner strength and unconditional freedom?
Well, shoo, if it was up to me, I would pollinate and grow a food forest, like this lovely raspberry patch right here. Then I would take it easy and forget about it, because that's the kind of guy I am.
You know, Ash, that's a noble idea. A fruit or nut tree planted today takes many years, even a decade, to bear a full harvest. Such an investment is best made early in life to fully enjoy. Giving one's children a food forest to explore, eat up, and later inherit is a true gift of freedom to future generations. A perennial garden with a commitment to restore one's food independence will also benefit the many more that one chooses to trade with. Local communities, rich in a wide assortment of home businesses and deeply rooted food security, will be the last place to need or seek anyone to rule over them. Ultimately, true wealth exists when there is the least need to transfer one's own time and value away from where it can achieve the greatest direct benefit. But since such self-generated and self-consumed value is not easy to track and impose upon by others, it will never be promoted. Instead, they only glorify specialization, resulting in a rigid and complex interdependence that forces into place a socially constricting civilization.
And what would you be doing, young brother Shu?
Oh, I will not stop just there, Ash. I want to learn many different skills and go where my curiosity leads me. So many people, having just one source of income, don't realize how vulnerable they've become. Having just one skill can quickly turn catastrophic for those unprepared. The advantage of multiple pursuits and income streams is true economic and social resiliency, especially when living from one's own land. Saving, planning, and training for any eventuality used to be common sense. Nobody should risk putting all their eggs in one basket. You'll have to have your hands in many pies. I know it sounds gross, but it's true. Losing the many capabilities to provide for oneself and one's family, especially to the extreme level of helplessness seen today, is like giving up on breathing one's own air. That's too risky to assume for others to responsibly take over. Another risk for those just selling a common product is from large, high-volume competition. Factories making and selling similar items at low prices were allowed to undercut small home-based businesses. Next thing you know, you are out of business and in line at the factory's employment office. Of course, once local shops are gone, factory prices go back up. Such was the fate of many, including small farmers, who saw the crops devalued by factory farms and could no longer provide the same standard of living for their families. This took money and jobs out of small towns, forcing those without a backup plan to move into larger cities. It is a vicious cycle, destroying the high quality of a small town lifestyle. This could have been avoided if knowledgeable consumers anticipated the loss their choices would cause. By having been indoctrinated to wear blinders on their one-track minds and constantly look for sales, they played a key role in their own demise.
Okay, I get it, Shu, but what the heck happens to those who get them factory jobs?
Well, often they allow themselves to act and be treated like nothing more than a tool in their boss's hands. Too often, their boss doesn't care for his tools properly. He just uses, abuses, and discards them when a newer, faster, and cheaper model comes along. So the obvious question comes to mind. How low will people go in objectifying their own existence? Will they ever become aware that with each division of labor into smaller fragments, they become further removed from what really matters? It's almost like they've become fixated on bending the pinky finger, and meanwhile they are forgetting how to walk. The all-consuming occupation may amuse them at first. Maybe it will be something few others have achieved, but which many will admire. This initial high doesn't last, because there was never any genuine pleasure within it. Maybe after years of commitment and mastery, there will be a faint satisfaction in being good at this pinky bending, but at what price? The lifetime of concentration that it required has drained one's energy completely. What is the opportunity cost of being really bad at everything else at a point of no more second chances?
Shoot, that's just as naughty as a fruitcake. Even back in a hive, the females do this and that, feed and babysit the little guys, build and maintain the nest, even guard and defend us all. They wear many hats, I tell you, and are real smart from all the juggling. Oh, they don't skip a beat, if you know what I mean.
Exactly, Ash. But don't get me wrong, I'm not saying our wasp life is perfect at all. In fact, there are many similarities shared between human life and our hive life. They are both concentrations of power and vulnerability, specialization and subjugation, peer pressure and mob mentality. In a way, wasps and humans can learn from each other. Our hive is actually a home for one family, even if a somewhat dysfunctional one, in a sense that we were treated like a number, surprisingly, not by the queen, but by each other. It was not because of our large population that this happened, but due to how densely packed we were. This is a very important distinction for people to also recognize. It seemed that the less personal room we had, the less special and thoughtful our communication became. First, we lost our privacy, and then our respect for one another. The value we each had is now only given to the hive and not to the individuals within it. Betsy told me how humans are falling for the same illusion. They put each other down while elevating those in power. They seem to forget that it was the principle of a free and peaceful society that brought them together, not just anyone or anything claiming authority or superiority. The very concept of individual freedom is the foundation and top arbiter of justice and a harmonious social order. It is the only rule needed because any infringement upon an individual is a violation of that person's freedom. Today, this principle is being replaced by societal cohesion that is artificial because it is forced out of necessity, since very few can stand on their own 2 feet. Pigeonholed people gladly believe the lie that the current system of global interdependence is unavoidable and necessary for stability and peace. Just listen to it. Global interdependence. I mean, just that term is so obscene. Whoever thought of shit like that? Oh boy. They stay quiet in fear, or they stay quiet because they don't know what's going on. Completely oblivious, which is exactly what allows the masters full control. Fear is the favorite weapon after all, because first they told people to fear God, who was previously loved. Then they told everyone to fear each other, especially anyone not following established norms. Finally, they told the public to fear their own selves, so they would willfully submit to increasingly more strict, coerced conformity. Human alchemists of the highest order aspire to create efficient self-policing societies, so they have convinced people that leading unique, separate, and unconstrained lives leads to division and isolation. But in truth, that uniqueness is the necessary basis for all successful complementary relations. A wide array of strong, independent societies will be infinitely more capable in dealing with adversity and in giving each other a helping hand. This is exactly why monolithic societies perish for lack of the many original strategies to life. Next, they deceive people that the differences of opinion introduce discord and conflict. But in reality, personal differences create an opportunity for greater understanding and discovery. After all, only strong understanding and not strong assimilation can lead to lasting peace. They also argue that individuality risks overall progress. But whose freaking progress? Honestly, their progress. That's about it. But actually, it is the only driver of any progress. They will even make people believe that originality can undermine and undo future civilizations. But in fact, original ideas are the seeds that can give life to better civilizations. They also propose that since societies came from one, they therefore must return to one. But honestly, that depends, because societies will always mirror their people. But finally, they will announce that people owe their very existence to the one world government. But deep down, people should know that it is the individual aspirations, motivations, and perseverance which authentically reinforce their existence.
Shoo, I can't put my claw on it, but all this sounds kind of familiar. Are we's also getting collectively enslaved?
Are we? I'm afraid so, Ash. In fact, every standard of conduct that was required of us was exactly what the Hive needed to control our lives. What is most disturbing to me is the way our Hive actually achieved our compliance. It was not just through direct physical coercion. Oh no. To reach the almost complete obedience by us, by people, as well as by the enforcers of both, was mainly a psychological operation.
Not to sound uptight or nothing, Shoo. Are you telling me that messing with our minds?
In more ways than one, Brother Ash. More than one. Betsy explained to me that just like nothing happens by accident, nothing ever does. Trust me. Things that are made to happen never occur for the reason they say. Real reasons, being often more than one, are never mentioned. So let's take, for example, the infringement on people's natural right to privacy. I mean, it seems like nobody cares about privacy anymore. It's so out there, you know? Everybody knows they're being spied on. Even your refrigerator is watching your every move.
Alright, let's see now. Was that to keep him safe?
Nope. You're ice cold wrong, Ash. Sorry, that was the official doublespeak reason, to make people double think such aggression against them is good for them. Okay, try again.
Alright, I got this. How about to spy on people?
You're at Hive temperature now, Ash. But this was only the alternative lie behind door number 2, to stop people from searching any further and to set in motion the real reason. Okay, Ash, last try.
Oh, forget about it. I give up. They're changing people into wasps for all I care.
Scalding hot, Ash. You got it. But let me explain. People who now know they are constantly watched, listened to, and tracked will undergo a significant psychological change. A realization occurs that there is so much personal information in the hands of strangers capable of ruining one's life, which is now being gathered to compose a working model of their virtual mind and to anticipate the every thought. This triggers a sense of loss of control over one's most inner self. It's as if the protective layers were peeled off without consent to exploit the bare soul. Such invasion traumatizes people, whether they realize it or not, to their deepest core. Every person from tender age develops a one-of-a-kind, separate own self, free to act individually or to associate with others as one chooses. So don't tell me your life is not your own. Now this choice and independence have been taken away. Because it all happens behind the back, feelings of helplessness and anxiety set in, with a bit of well-justified bitterness. This is due to the shameless disregard of a basic human right by those who have previously sworn to respect and uphold such rights. People will rightly feel that their trust was violated. Since one's right to privacy is also an integral part of the self-worth, any decline in one's quiet space is also going to impact their happiness, dignity, and self-respect. Now, the only way one's emotions, opinions, and actions can remain private is if they are never expressed. This stifling of natural human behavior will diminish relationships, get rid of political discourse, and personal motivation. It is well known that under such close observation, people are likely to do what is expected of them, going against their own preference, belief, or morality. This also causes undue stress and and reduces the quality of life. Now, of course, the manipulators in charge want human behavior modified to comply with their restrictive code of conduct. So all this worked perfectly for them to reduce some of the less desirable effects. In the years preceding the staged surveillance rollout, they primed the public to more readily accept it. This was done with reality entertainment, social media, and the selfie culture, all geared to promote public overexposure of previously totally private lives. Like, how do I take a poop? By formulating this obsession, they habituated people to view the lack of privacy as normal, helping to reduce any unwanted objection and suspicion. Today, people are only aware of the initial wave of surveillance, still on relatively minor scale. As new, more invasive technologies are phased in with DNA analysis, thought and emotion tracking, or direct predictive policing, people will cope by falsely accepting the new prison of uniformity, only reacting on cue to obtain the social reward points. In this sense, social wasps and people have both been fooled to think that degrading ourselves somehow elevates the whole. The truth is the complete opposite. In the beginning, everyone's privacy was highly respected. It helped preserve individual freedom to think or do things without fear or judgment or persecution. Today, in tightly packed cities and hives, both people and wasps forget how precious privacy is. They used to have the right to be left alone and felt secure that their solitude of mind, body, conduct, and property will never be violated. It gave them the needed space to nourish their identity and original outlook on life. It is where new ways to help and heal oneself and others could form and flourish without fear. Today, after all the social conditioning, privacy is something frowned upon. Everyone seemingly prefers to become predictable little robots, inviting others to police their every move. And my favorite, profound, meaningful, and deep conversations no longer exist because nobody has the personal time to figure out who they themselves really are. As you can see, I emphasize the importance of privacy because it really is essential to true freedom.
Shoo, now I got a deja vu feeling about this. Has this kind of trap been set for men before?
Yes, but it has never been so large, so unnoticed, while so close to completion. It appears that in human past, stratified civilizations like this that constrict man have always risen and failed. Then people returned to nature's garden and rediscovered how to grow God's heaven on earth. Sadly, the few who fail to fully develop choose to dictate to others, putting up an empty front of deceit and exploitation that undermines and fractures humanity again. Each time the misled belief that only some hold the key becomes the fatal flaw, because they all have what it takes. If only people would start to exercise the God-given power to live unconfined, their capabilities and rights would once again strengthen. The current leaders, however, are also not up to their task. These imperfect men are leading societies to their imperfect end. When people do see and suffer all the bad consequences, they only propose more externalized solutions. It's time they address the source of the problems. People that cannot or will not lead themselves will be led by others, and they might not like it very much. Humans within institutions of power that they help to corrupt, according to plan, will never admit their own role in betrayal, but blame the Constitution instead, because the ultimate goal is to destroy everything that ever set men free. Free, 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 free. Freedom! If, on the other hand, people break the hypnotic spell and admit to being hoodwinked, they'll regain the will needed to restore their free life. To do this today, people still have plenty of opportunities to work on themselves. What's that? Who wants to work on themselves? Are you crazy? First, they must perform a self-analysis, which should be honest but uplifting. By this, I mean taking stock of one's skills and character, to then use one's strong points to help improve one's weaknesses. Second, by being open to change, one should take responsibility and honest pleasure in figuring out how to handle all aspects of one's own life. Imagine how complete and satisfying that would feel. Imagine if you can, if you still have imagination. Working on this is the most stimulating exercise for one's body and mind. Anyone that looks at nature learns from it that within its changing environment, those with ingenuity and persistence are always rewarded. Third, to choose the right path, one must be in tune and aware of one's environment. Only then all ramifications of one's actions can be anticipated. For example, an invention produced in a sterile lab by an insulated mind will lack consideration, caution, and care for all that is unfamiliar. But there are always at least two ways of doing anything, one of which does the least harm. A segregated mind with a limited set of motives often will follow an idea oblivious to a better choice, a choice that a versatile mind will readily see and adopt. It is no surprise that today's architecture, furniture, machines, and other man-made products lack the beauty and looks and function that products hundreds and even thousands of years ago had. The makers and builders of old were still connected to nature and much better rounded in life.
Not to brag on nothing, Shu, but isn't our hive cool looking next to those people boxes? Guess I see what you mean, though. It's still a huge gray edifice of uniformity when the natural world is so much more vibrant, rich, and profound.
Oh, Ash, isn't it funny how our whole lives we didn't notice it, but now for some reason we do? Could this sudden realization come from a spark of freedom still unextinguished within us?
If that be true, then I can't complain, Shu. A spark is exactly what I need to energize my rusty circuitry.
Well, I could see that Betsy already sparkled brightly while speaking about how it could all be. She said people used to carry real wisdom and share it with everything in nature. Now that the intimate friendship is gone, they only seek to impose their will upon us, as if they were separate and above nature.
Can you believe that crap?
They also became more destructive as the urban hives grew in isolation from nature. Freaking clueless. This proves that man's planned artificial world also damaged his spirit, as he now lacks the awareness of what it means to experience the natural world. He's freaking clueless. You used to see children playing outside, running, hiding. Now, computers. Macabre. The original, unconstrained society was very sincere and honest on personal level. The one-to-one relationships acted as checks and balances for moral conduct and for earning respect from others. Now people don't care about moral conduct and they don't care about respect. They don't care about anything. It was all very beneficial to family life and the general public. They were both enriched with fully mature and virtuous members. Life was good, stimulating and rewarding. Not bad, boring, and repetitious. Let's not forget self-destructive. On the other hand, when people became streamlined to one-dimensional careers as a way of life, they began to look at each other in the same superficial way. Their conversations became trivial. Hello, how are you? What do you do?
Ah, a paranoid billionaire that can't even change their own light bulb or put new ink in the printer.
Definitely don't know anything.
Totally brainwashed. Ridiculous.
The friendships shallow. The interests pointless, and so the society as a whole became dysfunctional.
All they care about is money, progress, ambition.
Plus, they waste half of the day just surfing bullshit online. A big freak show. A big circus.
But hold up a minute, Shu. What about the children? That's our hope right there, no?
Yes, every generation hopes the same, but fails to tell their children the truth. What is wrong with that? No wonder things are getting worse. Today, so many young ones are told to pick just one study, one practice, one occupation. This is such an unnatural decision, especially at such a young age, because at first, they are curious about so many different pursuits. They find adventure in discovery, experimenting in various tasks, situations, and intentions. Their minds are constantly active, questioning what they see, hear, and feel. They think long about things. They interpret, connect, reason, imagine, and soon they begin to know things. As the wealth and diversity of their knowledge grows, they start to apply it to directly improve the lives and of those around them. Now, when faced with a complex problem to solve and a tough decision to make, there will be very few unforeseen questions or unintended consequences. That's because in their full house of knowledge and experience, there will be a very thorough comparison constantly taking place between all possible solutions, and equal consideration will be applied to all circumstances that may be affected, but all that I just described will hardly happen anymore in child's life. Instead, they are pressured into just one thin slice of life, like one brick oven thin slice of pizza with measly little single boring topping, like cheese. So the arsenal of lessons learned dwindles down to a few. Not having the full picture, they cause conflicts which previously would have been avoided. Nobody realizes this obvious reason why now the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing. On the contrary, they think division of labor is a great thing, making work more efficient. Today, it can take 10 different types of experts to complete a given project, which before one skilled craftsman could handle from start to finish. People need to begin asking themselves what they have really lost. A tunnel vision mind no longer sees the conflicts the impaired actions cause. A tunnel vision mind no longer sees anything. It's just running through a tunnel. For the power-hungry, this of course was a perfect excuse to add layers of management and authority to guide the now disjointed hands to the desired ends. So now those on top can plot men's future, cloaked in totally intact privacy, while those below, naked and afraid, follow questionable orders on a need-to-know basis. This pyramid of lies has another purpose. The repetition and uniformity of a very narrow work function causes one's way of thinking to become compartmentalized, very much like in the crude organized terror tactics. Its traumatized targets become transfixed and programmable to follow any negative suggestion. People indoctrinated in this manner will never ask the right questions because of their limited perspective. They're holding 2 puzzle pieces while 200 more remain hidden and out of reach. Now, these agents of atrophy, instead of helping to restore one's natural strength, have introduced the idea of transhumanism. It's a lofty goal to augment people even more. In reality, it would act as a permanent, irreversible lock, ensnaring people within their mind prison experiment.
Shoo, is that what being domesticated feels like for real?
I think so, Ash. Animals in nature are smarter, stronger, more agile, and more independent than those selectively bred by humans for the so-called docile disposition. A human society that rewards certain traits, like, ask you say, and prevents other traits from developing in people is also selectively conditioning the human race. For example, it could be said that in an artificial world, without nature's mental and physical stimuli, certain parts of being human will weaken and disappear. You don't use it, you lose it. Their natural defenses against the microscopic or the instincts about the very large may fail to protect them. Humans throughout history have luckily developed various external defenses, like a separate metal stinger, which offered them safety against those more physically aggressive. You and I know perfectly well how, as a male wasp, being a minority, born without stingers, we endured being poked and prodded by the female wasp majority. Just the other day, I was wasp-handled and shoved headfirst into an empty nest cell while her stinger was pressed firmly against my abdomen, within a hair width of certain death. There was nothing I did to deserve this, so that's a clear tactic of oppression and intimidation being applied here solely because I was defenseless. I sure hope man remembers not to become a vulnerable victim like this. There are hypocrites in power with despotic tendencies who constantly tell people to disarm, while none of them or their bodyguards ever will. Personal stingers are the only defenses in place that currently keep authoritarian brutality at bay by simply being there without firing a shot. It is a necessary deterrent to have an armed population when armed, power-hungry predators exist. Would a hedgehog give up its quills, or a skunk its spray, when such violence prevention keeps unsatisfied foxes away? Not a chance. If those with heavily armed enforcers on hand really cared about limiting brutal behavior, they would set a better example. They instead popularize recklessness and disregard for human life through news, entertainment, drugs, and their so-called leadership. It's crystal clear that they aim to declaw the peaceful public to finalize their draconian domestication plan. You betcha. Unfortunately, the mode of operation they use to achieve uneasy change is always through destruction, chaos, and death. So it pays for people to remain on guard, to keep what freedom remains. The more time I spend in nature, away from our hive, the more I wish humans would too. They would love it. It would benefit them. They would relish in it. If they observe carefully, it will provide a positive confirmation that they in fact are people and not insects, and that no human society can be shaped like a hive. It may be easy to direct and control, but the part which is human will never survive.
Shoo, my buddy. People might come around. If the more they taste freedom, the worse captivity will feel.
Yes, Ash, igniting one's sparks of curiosity, independence, and creativity can change this world for good without the loss and carnage craved by the overseers of oblivion. By receiving and applying authentic wisdom from nature, people can shape their own presence and self-discovery, fully at peace with their soul and God. This self-learned honor would actually move them away from competing against each other and towards a willingly chosen common bond of respect and freedom. Nothing would turn to crap anymore, because responsibility for one's well-being would never again be handed over to unethical, corrupt, or disinterested parties. Too many undervalue their own talent to learn and accomplish, and end up being exploited and neglected.
Shoo, so that's where we're at, and that's what's the matter. But what will it take, my brother?
Well, Ash, I recognize that we, just as people, are physically and mentally weaker today as individuals, but still not that different from original, and still with capacity to improve. I also see that very much like humans, our biggest shortfall exists in our heads, and luckily we still get to decide what dwells behind our antennae. I will start by readjusting my perception of what true freedom really means, what it will require of me, and what I'm willing to sacrifice to obtain it. And it's definitely not working my whole life for some dude that doesn't give a damn about me, doing the same stuff over and over. Basta! Then I will reassess my self-worth to make sure I'm not selling myself short. Once I reestablish these facts, I can begin to shed the groupthink herd mentality of the hive. That constant repressive influence to play their game and toe the line will be gone. I won't fear being different or meeting expectations, because I will have regained my power to have original thoughts, dreams, and questions. This will allow me to learn both old and new abilities with patience and will. Oh, it may be hard, but seeing clearly now what the hive mind destroyed, my decision is very easy to make. I choose full freedom because I choose to lead a complete life. I will not fly back to the hive, Brother Ash, because it's where cowardice and misery now reside. Instead, this sweet raspberry blossom will be my pillow tonight, comforting me with its own essence of emancipation. I only have this one chance to show God how I will live my life, and I'm going for it. Good night, Brother Ash.
Sleep well, Brother Shoo. Sleep well, Brother Shoo.